Minho Kim stood in the great hall of the Galactic Council. The ceiling stretched so high above him that it disappeared into darkness. Around the circular room, hundreds of alien beings sat on floating platforms. Some had scales that shimmered, like oil. Others had 6 arms or no arms at all. A few glowed with their own inner light, but all of them were looking down at him, literally looking down. The human delegation stood on the floor level while everyone else floated above them. It was not an accident. The council wanted humans to know their place from the moment they walked in. Admiral Jisoo Park stood behind Minho, her uniform crisp despite the long journey. She had commanded human fleets for 20 years. Today she felt more like a prisoner than a military officer. Chief Diplomat Tae-hyun Lee kept his face calm, but his hands were clenched behind his back. He had spent his entire career trying to make peace with the council. Today he was starting to think peace might be impossible. Science advisor So-young Han carried a data pad with information about human colonies, the information that had gotten them in trouble. Again, the Supreme Arch floated highest of all. Thexnel was older than human civilization. His crystalline body caught the light from above and threw rainbows across the floor. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once. "Humans of Earth," the voice boomed, "you have been called, here to answer for your crimes against galactic law." Minho did not bow. He did not apologize. He simply waited. The charges came one by one. A Velkari official with too many eyes read from a glowing tablet. His voice was high and squeaky, like a broken whistle. Unauthorized settlement of 17 worlds in the Outer Rim. Minho knew about those worlds. Barren rocks that no one else wanted. Places where humans could barely survive. But they were home to 3 million people now. Failure to obtain proper terraforming permits. Those permits took 50 years to process. Human children would die of old age waiting for the council to decide if they deserved breathable air. Introduction of non-native species to sterile environments. They meant grass and trees and the small animals that made the new worlds feel alive instead of like giant tombs. Violation of the Sacred Preservation Act. This was the big one. The council had decided that some worlds must remain exactly as they were found, even if humans were dying for lack of space, even if the worlds had no life to preserve. When the charges were finished, Thexnel's rainbow light grew brighter. These crimes show humanity's continued disregard for galactic order. You expand without permission. You change worlds without consent. You act as if the galaxy belongs to you alone. Minho finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but it carried in the vast hall. "We understand the charges. Do you accept guilt?" "We understand the council's position." This was not the answer they expected. Angry muttering came from the floating platforms. Several aliens leaned forward to get a better look at the stubborn human. A Corvani representative slithered forward. His snake-like body was as thick as a tree trunk. When he spoke, forked tongues flickered between his teeth. "Humans have been given chances. Many chances. You were welcomed into the galactic community 300 years ago. We shared our knowledge. We allowed you to settle the outer systems. And how do you repay this kindness? With rebellion." More voices joined in. The hall filled with clicking, buzzing, and warbling sounds as dozens of species added their complaints. They breed too fast. Their ships are too noisy. They ask too many questions. They change everything they touch. Minho listened to it all. He had heard it before. Humans were too curious, too aggressive, too eager to explore and change and grow. The established races of the galaxy were comfortable with the way things were. They had divided up all the good worlds long ago. They saw no reason to share. Jisoo stepped forward slightly. She whispered in Minho's ear, "Operation Exodus is ready. All fleets are in position. Just give the word." Minho nodded slightly. The movement was so small that most of the aliens missed it. But Tae-hyun saw. So did So-young. They knew what it meant. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this day. Not hoping for it, preparing for it. They had built ships in secret, developed new technologies, made plans that even their closest allies knew nothing about, because deep down, every human leader knew this moment would come. The Council would eventually demand complete submission or complete removal of humanity from civilized space. Today, they were about to get an answer they never expected. Thexnel's voice boomed again. The Council has shown patience with humanity for 3 centuries, but patience has limits. You will cease all unauthorized expansion immediately. You will abandon the 17 illegal colonies. You will submit all future plans to Council approval before any action is taken. He paused, letting the rainbow light dim slightly. You will also pay penalties. 20% of all human industrial output for the next century. Your fleet will be reduced by half. Your access to advanced technologies will be reviewed and restricted. The terms were harsh. Harsher than anything the Council had ever imposed on humanity before, but they were not unexpected. Around the Great Hall, alien representatives nodded approval. A few even made satisfied chirping sounds. The humans were finally going to be put in their proper place. Minho looked up at the supramarch. For a long moment, the hall was completely silent. Even the mechanical humming of the floating platforms seemed to pause. When Minho spoke, his voice was steady and clear. We will provide our response within the standard period. It was a standard diplomatic answer. Nothing threatening. Nothing that broke protocol. The Council members relaxed. They had expected anger or pleading. This calm acceptance meant the humans would probably comply. Thexnel made a sound like crystal bells ringing. You have 7 standard days. After that time, failure to accept these terms will be considered an act of war against the galactic community. Understood, Minho replied. The human delegation turned and walked toward the great doors. Their footsteps echoed in the vast space. Behind them, alien voices began discussing how to divide up the abandoned human colonies. As they reached the corridor outside, Taehyun spoke quietly. 7 days? We won't need 7 days, Minho replied. Send the signal. Operation Exodus begins now. Jisoo touched a small device on her wrist. Across the galaxy, the largest evacuation in human history began. The Council thought they had just won a great victory. They had no idea they were about to lose something they never thought they could lose: complete control over humanity's future. Within hours, 12 billion humans would begin disappearing from known space, and the galaxy would never be the same. President Hyunwoo Choi looked at the massive screen in front of him. Thousands of faces stared back. Representatives from every human world in the galaxy had joined this emergency meeting. Some were in gleaming conference rooms on prosperous, core worlds. Others sat in rough mining offices on the frontier. A few were calling in from ships traveling between the stars. All of them waited for him to speak. You have heard the Council's demands, Hyunwoo began. His voice was calm, but his hands shook slightly. They want us to abandon 17 colonies. They want to cut our fleet in half. They want 20% of everything we make for the next 100 years. Angry voices filled the communication channels. Representatives shouted over each other in a dozen different languages. Hyunwoo raised his hand, and the noise slowly died down. The question before us is simple, he continued. Do we accept these terms, or do we reject them? Minji Song leaned forward in her chair. She governed New Seoul Colony, a world of ice and rock where humans had built underground cities. Her people worked 16-hour days just to keep the heating systems running. We have given them 300 years, she said. Her voice was tired but angry. 300 years of doing what they told us. 300 years of taking their scraps while they kept the best worlds for themselves. She stood up and pointed at the screen showing Earth. My grandmother was born when humans first joined the Council. She believed their promises. She thought if we were good citizens and followed all their rules, they would treat us fairly. She died waiting for that fairness to come. Minji's image flickered as her colony's power system struggled with the long-distance transmission. Our children are growing up on worlds where we can barely breathe, where we have to import everything from food to medicine. And why? Because the Council decided humans do not deserve the good planets. Well, I am tired of begging for what our children need to survive. Voices rose in agreement from the frontier colonies. These were the worlds that struggled most under Council restrictions, places where human families lived in constant danger, just because they were not allowed to settle anywhere better. But not everyone agreed. Dongyun Nam had been alive when humanity first contacted the Council. He remembered the early wars between human nations and the peace that came when they joined the galactic community. His Mars colony was one of the oldest and most established. I understand the anger, he said slowly. I feel it too. But anger does not stop plasma cannons. The Council has fleets that could destroy every human world in a matter of days. They have technology we cannot match. If we defy them, we might not survive. Several representatives nodded. The Martian colonies had prospered under Council rule. They had access to alien technologies and profitable trade routes. They had more to lose than the frontier worlds. Admiral Jisoo Park joined the meeting from her flagship. Behind her, officers worked at control stations, preparing for something the civilian leaders could only guess at. The Council's technology is advanced, she admitted. Their ships are bigger, their weapons are more powerful, but we have advantages they do not expect. She gestured to someone off-screen. A holographic display appeared showing human and alien fleet positions across the galaxy. We have been preparing for this possibility for 50 years, not hoping for it, preparing for it. Our ships may be smaller, but they are faster and more maneuverable. Our crews are better trained for combat because we have been fighting pirates and raiders while the Council fleet sat in safe harbors. The display changed to show new types of ships, vessels with sleek designs that looked nothing like traditional human spacecraft. Most importantly, we have developed new technologies. The Council thinks they know what human science can do. They are wrong. Science advisor Yunji Kang appeared on another screen. She was young for such an important position, barely 30 years old. But she was also the smartest person most of the representatives had ever met. The Council restricted our access to their technology, she explained. They gave us just enough to keep us happy, but not enough to threaten them. What they did not restrict was our curiosity. Her image was replaced by complex diagrams showing engine designs and mathematical formulas. We have been studying the principles behind their faster-than-light travel. We discovered something they missed. There are other ways to fold space, ways that work on completely different principles. She paused to let that sink in. Our new quantum fold drives can take us farther and faster than anything in the Council fleet. More importantly, they can take us places the Council has never been, places they cannot follow. Sungjin Oh was the youngest representative in the assembly. He governed a mining colony on the very edge of human space. Most of his citizens were under 30 years old. They had known nothing but Council restrictions their entire lives. My generation has never known freedom, he said. His voice was steady but full of emotion. We have watched our parents bow down to aliens who treat us like pets. We have seen brilliant human scientists forced to work on projects approved by alien bureaucrats. We have watched human artists told that their music is too loud and their paintings too colorful. He stood up in his simple office on a world most representatives had never heard of. The Council wants to treat us like children who cannot be trusted with dangerous toys. But we are not children anymore. We have proven we can survive on worlds they said were impossible to settle. We have built cities in places they said no one could live. We have created art and music and literature that expresses the human spirit. His image flickered as a dust storm hit his colony's communication array. If they want to treat us like barbarians, then let us show them what human barbarians can accomplish. Let us show them what happens when you push humans too far. The debate continued for hours. Representatives from the inner colonies worried about economic collapse. Those from the frontier colonies spoke about freedom and dignity. Military officers explained battle plans, while scientists discussed new technologies. That sounded like magic. Finally, President Hyunwoo called for quiet. The vote will be simple. Accept the Council's terms or reject them and begin Operation Exodus. If we vote to leave, there will be no going back. We will be cutting ties with the galactic community forever. The voting took 20 minutes. When it was finished, the results appeared on screens across human space. 847 votes to leave, 523 votes to stay. President Hyunwoo looked at the numbers for a long moment. Then he looked directly into the camera. The decision is made. As of this moment, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We renounce all treaties and obligations. All human colonies will begin immediate evacuation under Operation Exodus. He paused and took a deep breath. We are no longer citizens of the galactic community. We are free. Across human space, alarms began to sound. The largest evacuation in galactic history was about to begin. Fleet Admiral Seo-hyun Lim stood on the bridge of the Independence and watched 12 billion people disappear from the galaxy. The massive ship floated in empty space between star systems. Around it, thousands of other vessels waited for orders. Some were military ships with sleek hulls and powerful engines. Others were enormous cargo haulers that looked more like floating cities. All of them were part of the largest evacuation in galactic history. Status report, Seo-hyun ordered. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Do-hyun Park, checked his displays. Numbers flowed across his screens showing the progress of Operation Exodus across human space. Phase 1 is ahead of schedule, Admiral. Captain Junho is reporting successful evacuation of New Busan Colony. All 2 million residents are aboard the ARC ships. Seo-hyun nodded. New Busan had been one of humanity's newest colonies. The people there had been ready to leave at a moment's notice. Other worlds would be more difficult. What about the industrial complexes? Commander Yuna reports mining operations on 17 worlds are being stripped down to component level. The crews are taking everything that can be moved and destroying what cannot. This was the part of the plan that impressed Seo-hyun most. Humanity was not just running away. They were making sure the Council found nothing useful when they arrived. Every factory, every mining station, every piece of human technology was being removed or destroyed. On New Busan, Captain Junho Park stood in the command center of the ARC ship New Hope. Through the massive windows, he could see the last shuttles rising from the planet's surface. Each one carried families who had spent years building homes on this world. Now they were leaving everything behind. Final count shows 2,047,312 evacuees aboard the fleet, reported his first officer. No one was left behind. Junho felt pride and sadness at the same time. The evacuation had gone perfectly. Every human on New Busan was safe, but they were also homeless now, traveling to an unknown destination with no promise of what they would find there. Below them, the planet looked peaceful. The cities humans had built were empty but undamaged. Gardens still bloomed in the parks. The orbital stations still processed minerals from the asteroid belt. To anyone arriving later, it would look like the humans had simply vanished. But Junho knew the truth. Hidden charges would detonate in 6 hours. The cities would be reduced to basic elements that would scatter in the wind. The orbital stations would collapse into the planet's atmosphere. Within days, New Busan would look like humans had never been there. On the mining world of New Gangwon, Commander Yuna Kim supervised a different kind of operation. Her teams were not just evacuating people. They were taking apart an entire industrial civilization. Team 7 reports the main smelting complex is ready for transport, called out Sergeant Ki-Wan Lee. The molecular disassemblers have broken, it down to component atoms. We can rebuild it anywhere. Yuna watched as massive ships swallowed the pieces of human industry. Mining equipment that had taken decades to build was being reduced to raw materials in hours. The advanced technology that made it possible was something the Council had never seen before. What about the deep core extractors? Too big to move, Commander. But we have removed all the control systems and destroyed the rest. Anyone trying to use the tunnels will find empty shafts leading nowhere. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy. They were leaving behind exactly nothing that could benefit their former masters. Every valuable resource would disappear with the humans who had found it. In the Sol system, the operation was even more ambitious. Earth itself was being prepared for abandonment. Director Han Song coordinated the evacuation from Luna Station. The moon had been humanity's first off-world colony. Now it would be their last stop before leaving the galaxy forever. Atmospheric. Processors are working at maximum capacity, reported engineer Sang-Hyun Park. We should have Earth's climate restored to pre-industrial levels within 48 hours. This was perhaps the most incredible part of Operation Exodus. Humanity was not just leaving Earth. They were erasing every trace they had ever been there. Atmospheric scrubbers were removing pollution. Genetic reconstruction teams were bringing back extinct animals. Even the great cities were being broken down and recycled. What about the satellite network? All orbital installations are being deconstructed. The space elevators will be the last to go. We need them to move the final evacuation ships. Hanul looked at the display showing Earth. Already, the planet looked different. The brown smog clouds were gone. Green areas were expanding, as genetically preserved forests were replanted. The blue of the oceans was becoming clearer as filtration systems removed centuries of human waste. When the Council arrived, they would find a pristine world with no evidence that intelligent life had ever existed there. But not everyone was evacuating peacefully. Captain Ji-Won Lee commanded the rear guard, fighting a running battle with Council scouts across 3 star systems. "Enemy cruiser approaching from Sector 7, called out her tactical officer. "It's one of those big Valkyrie ships with the crystal armor." Ji-Won smiled grimly. The Council had sent their fleets to stop the evacuation. They expected to find panicking refugees in slow transport ships. Instead, they found human warships using technology they had never encountered. Fire quantum torpedoes. Full spread. Her ship, the Defiance, launched weapons that bent space itself. The enemy cruiser's shields were designed to stop energy beams, and explosive missiles. They were not designed to handle weapons that attacked the fabric of reality. The Valkyrie ship simply folded in half and disappeared. "Jump coordinates laid in, Captain. The evacuation convoy is clear." "Execute jump. Let's go find our people a new home." The Defiance vanished into fold space, leaving behind only confused Council ships and empty star systems. Across human space, the same scene played out hundreds of times. Military ships fought brief battles to cover the evacuation fleets. Then they disappeared into the unknown regions beyond the galactic rim. Admiral Seo-hyun watched the final reports come in. Every human colony had been evacuated. Every piece of human technology had been removed or destroyed. Every person who wanted to leave had been given passage to the new worlds waiting in the darkness between galaxies. "Final count, Admiral," reported Lieutenant Do-Yun. 12,600,000,000 humans successfully evacuated. 0 casualties. 0 equipment lost to enemy action. Seo-hyun felt a moment of satisfaction. Operation Exodus had succeeded, beyond their best hopes. But the real test was still ahead. They had left the known galaxy behind. Now they had to build a new civilization in places where no one had ever lived before. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Set course for the void. We have a new world to find." The human fleet entered fold space and disappeared. Behind them, they left empty star systems and a galaxy that would never be the same. The Council had demanded humanity's submission. Instead, humanity had given them something they never expected: absolute solitude. Supreme Arch. Thexnel stared at the reports coming from across the galaxy. His crystalline body flickered with colors that showed confusion and growing anger. In 3,000 years of rule, nothing like this had ever happened before. "Tell me," again, he said to the Corvani admiral floating beside him, "how does an entire species simply vanish?" Admiral Sektar coiled his serpentine body nervously. His forked tongue flicked out repeatedly, tasting the air for danger that was not there. "The reports are consistent across all human territories. Supreme Arch, our fleets arrived to find empty worlds. No people, no technology, no signs of struggle. It is as if 12 billion humans never existed." Thexenel's light grew brighter with frustration. The council chamber was filled with representatives demanding answers he did not have. 36 species were asking the same question. Where? Had humanity gone? What about their ships? Surely our sensors detected something. Tracking specialist Zulmat of the Corvani fleet stepped forward. His insectoid body clicked and buzzed as he spoke. "We detected quantum fold signatures at the edge of 17 systems, but the trails disappear at the galactic rim. Our best tracking technology cannot follow them into the void." This was impossible. The void between galaxies was empty space filled with deadly radiation. Nothing could survive there. Even the most advanced council ships would be destroyed within days. "Perhaps they are hiding in the outer systems," suggested a Velkari counselor, "waiting for our fleets to leave so they can return." But strategic analyst Mordun shook his massive head. His 4 eyes glowed red with exhaustion. He had been studying this problem for months. "We have searched 43,000 star systems. We have checked every asteroid field, every nebula, every possible hiding place within 500 light-years of former human territory. There is no trace of them." The search had consumed enormous resources. Council fleets that normally patrolled trade routes were scattered across the galaxy, looking for humans who seemed to have vanished into legend. Pirates and raiders were taking advantage of the chaos. Several minor species were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions about council authority. Mordun activated a holographic display showing the search pattern. Red dots marked systems that had been searched. There were thousands of them. "We have found abandoned equipment floating in space, pieces of human technology that were left behind. But the equipment has been stripped of all useful components. Even our best scientists cannot learn anything from the remains." Thexnel studied the display with growing unease. The sheer scale of the human evacuation was beginning to sink in. 12 billion people had disappeared along with their entire technological civilization. Ships, factories, space stations, even their pets and farm animals. Everything was gone. What about their home world? Surely they could not have evacuated Earth itself. This question made the entire chamber fall silent. Everyone knew about Earth. It was one of the most heavily populated worlds in the galaxy. Removing everyone from such a planet should have taken years. Admiral Sektar activated another display. This one showed Earth as it appeared now. "Our scouts report that Earth appears to be a pristine world with no signs of industrial civilization. The atmosphere is clean, the forests are thick and green. There are animals that our records show went extinct centuries ago." The image was beautiful. Earth looked like a paradise world that had never known intelligent life. Rivers ran clear. Mountains reached toward blue skies. Vast forests covered continents where great cities had once stood. "It is impossible," whispered Counselor Velthar. "No species has the technology to restore an entire planet so quickly." But Mordun had studied human capabilities for decades. He had always warned that humanity was more dangerous than the Council believed. "We underestimated them," he said quietly. "For 300 years we assumed humans were primitive because their technology looked crude compared to ours. We never considered that they might be developing capabilities we could not detect." The silence in the chamber grew uncomfortable. Several species had built their power on the assumption that the Council's technology was superior to all others. If humans had developed better science in secret, what did that mean for galactic order? Historian Vel Thar accessed the Council's databases with trembling appendages. Ancient records scrolled across his display as he searched for precedent. In 3,000 years of galactic governance, no species has ever successfully defied the Council's authority. The few who tried were defeated within months. Their worlds were occupied. Their populations were relocated to reservation systems. He paused, looking at the empty space where human worlds used to be. But this is different. The humans did not rebel. They did not fight us directly. They simply chose to leave rather than submit, and they had the capability to make that choice real. The implications were staggering. If other species learned that it was possible to defy the Council and survive, the entire galactic order could collapse. Already reports were coming in of unrest on worlds that had never shown signs of rebellion before. Young Corvani were asking why their elders accepted Council restrictions. Velkari scientists were questioning why their research required Council approval. Even some of the ancient races were beginning to wonder if the status quo was truly necessary. Supremarch Thexnull made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his long life. Double the search efforts. Recall all available fleets from patrol duties. I want every ship in the galaxy looking for these humans. But Supremarch, protested Admiral Sektar, that will leave the trade routes undefended. Pirates are already taking advantage of our reduced presence. Pirates are a temporary problem. Humans who have successfully defied Council authority are a permanent threat to galactic civilization. Find them. The search continued for 5 years. Council ships pushed deeper into unexplored space than any had gone before. They followed ancient star charts into regions where radiation levels were lethal. They investigated rumored wormholes and dimensional anomalies. They found nothing. Worse, the prolonged search was destroying the Council's credibility. Trade suffered as merchants could not get protection for their cargo ships. Several species began forming their own defense fleets without Council permission. The rigid hierarchy that had governed the galaxy for millennia was beginning to crack. N2. The end, Morden wrote a report that no one wanted to read. Analysis concludes that humanity has successfully evacuated to regions beyond our detection capability. They possess technology that allows them to survive in environments we consider impossible. Most critically, they have demonstrated that it is possible to reject Council authority and face no consequences. He submitted the report knowing it would probably end his career. But someone had to tell the truth. Recommendation: accept that humanity is beyond our reach. Focus on preventing other species from following their example. Supremarch. Thexnull read the report in private. For the first time in his 3,000-year life, he felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not fear of humans specifically, but fear of what their success meant. The Council's power was based on the belief that resistance was futile. Humanity had proven that belief wrong. The search officially ended after 5 years. The Council announced that humanity had been dealt with and refused to discuss the matter further. But privately, every Council member knew the truth. Humanity had walked away from their authority and disappeared into legend. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the galaxy, 12 billion humans were building something new, something the Council might not be able to control. Captain Minseo Yoon stood on the bridge of the New Dawn and watched Nexus Station grow larger in the view screen. The massive trading hub looked exactly as she remembered from 20 years ago. Ships from dozens of species docked at its enormous arms while cargo moved between the holds. But something had changed. The ships looked older. The station's lights were dimmer. Even from a distance, she could see sections that needed repair. "All stations report ready, Captain," said her first officer, Lieutenant Ji-hoon Seo. "The diplomatic shuttle is prepared. For launch." Min Seo nodded. After 20 years in the void between galaxies, humanity was ready to return. Not as the desperate refugees who had fled Council space, but as something entirely new. The new dawn was unlike any ship that had ever approached. Nexus Station. Its hull seemed to flow like liquid metal. Strange lights moved beneath its surface. Even its shape changed slightly as they watched, adapting to local gravitational fields. When Minseo had requested docking permission, the response had been chaos. Station controllers who had never seen anything like her ship scrambled to contact their superiors. Within hours, emergency sessions were being called across the galaxy. Humanity had returned. Admiral Wanho Jiang stepped off the diplomatic shuttle wearing clothes that seemed impossible. The fabric shifted colors as he moved, sometimes looking like deep space filled with stars, other times like flowing water. Behind him came 3 other humans, all wearing similar garments that seemed to be made from light itself. The station's docking bay had been cleared except for security personnel. Dozens of different species watched nervously as the human delegation walked toward the main corridors. Some had weapons ready, others simply stared in amazement. Wanho looked older than when he had left 20 years ago, but he carried himself with quiet confidence. His companions moved with the same calm assurance. These were not the desperate humans who had fled into the void. These were people who had found something extraordinary in the darkness. Station Commander Krixtal, a Corvani with emerald scales, slithered forward to meet them. His forked tongue flicked out repeatedly, tasting the air around the humans for signs of danger or deception. "Admiral Jiang," he hissed, "the Council has been informed of your arrival. They are surprised." "I imagine they are," Wanho replied calmly. 20 years is a long time. We have much to discuss." The emergency council session was held in the same chamber where humanity had been given their ultimatum 2 decades earlier. But now, the roles were reversed. The council members floated on their platforms looking down at empty space where humanity had once stood. This time, the humans appeared as holographic projections, speaking from their own ships as equals. Supramarch. Thexnel was ancient now, his crystalline body dim and cracked with age. The search for humanity had consumed the last decades of his rule. Now they had returned just as mysteriously as they had vanished. "Humans," his voice creaked like breaking glass. "You have returned to face justice for your crimes against galactic order." But the human who appeared in the chamber was not the same Minho Kim who had stood there 20 years ago. This was Admiral Wanho, and he spoke with the authority of someone who had nothing to fear. "We have not returned to face your justice. Supremarch, we have returned to offer something new, a partnership between equals." The chamber erupted in angry sounds from dozens of species. How dare these primitive humans speak of equality with the ancient powers of the galaxy? But Admiral Wanho continued calmly. 20 years ago, you gave humanity a choice between submission and exile. We chose exile. In the deep void beyond your authority, we discovered something you could never have given us. We discovered what humans can accomplish when we are truly free. A holographic display appeared showing star systems that no council member had ever seen. Worlds orbited ancient suns in patterns that seemed impossible. Cities floated in space without any visible support. Ships moved between planets using principles that council science insisted were fantasy. We have settled 47 worlds in 3 star systems beyond the galactic rim. We have built cities that exist partially in normal space and partially in dimensions you have not discovered yet. We have created art and music that expresses the full range of human experience, unrestricted by anyone's rules but our own. Diplomat Soyeon Oh joined the projection, her image appearing beside Admiral Wanho. Her clothes seemed to be woven from starlight, shifting and flowing like liquid energy. "We return not as supplicants seeking readmission to your community, but As representatives of an independent civilization, we offer trade agreements, technological exchange, and mutual defense treaties between sovereign powers. The terms she presented were generous but firm. Humanity would share certain technologies with species that treated them as equals. They would establish trade routes that benefited both sides. They would even provide assistance against common threats like pirates and dimensional anomalies, but they would not accept restrictions on their expansion, their technology, or their way of life. They would not pay tribute to the Council or seek permission for their activities. They would govern themselves according to their own values. Trade Representative Chang Min Nam explained the economic benefits. Human technology could solve problems that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. Their new energy sources could power civilizations for millions of years. Their medical advances could extend the lives of species that were facing extinction. Cultural attaché Ji Hyun Kang described the artistic renaissance that freedom had brought to humanity. Music that incorporated sounds from 11 dimensions, sculptures that existed in multiple realities simultaneously, stories that could be experienced by readers as if they were living the events themselves. But the most impressive speaker was President Ji-Yan Lee, joining from New Terra, humanity's capital world in their new territory. The Council taught us an important lesson 20 years ago, she said. You taught us that we could not depend on others for our freedom, that we had to be strong enough to walk away from anyone who tried to limit our potential. Her image showed a woman in her 50s with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of someone who had seen wonders beyond imagination. We walked away from your galaxy and found something beautiful in the darkness. We found ourselves. Now we return to offer that same opportunity to others, not to replace your council, but to show that there are alternatives to the way things have always been. The council faced an impossible choice. Humanity now clearly possessed technology far beyond anything in council space. Their ships could travel faster and farther than the most advanced vessels. Their weapons could affect reality itself. Their defenses seemed to make them nearly invulnerable. They could either accept humanity as an equal partner or risk a war they would certainly lose. Supreme Arch Thexnel consulted with his advisors in whispers that filled the great chamber with strange harmonics. Finally, his cracked voice spoke the words that would reshape galactic politics forever. The Council recognizes the Terran Federation as a sovereign civilization. We welcome humanity back to the galactic community as partners. The word partners seemed to stick in his throat like poison, but he said it. Ambassador Sung-jae Cho appeared in the chamber to sign the formal accords. As he did, he thought about the journey that had brought humanity to this moment. 20 years ago, they had been treated like dangerous children who needed constant supervision. Today, they were signing treaties as equals with the most powerful forces in the galaxy. The Council had never believed humanity would actually walk away. They had been wrong about that, just as they had been wrong about human potential. But perhaps most importantly, they had been wrong about what happens when you tell free people that they cannot be free. Humanity had proven that sometimes the best response to an impossible situation is not to fight it or accept it, but to walk away and build something better. As the human delegation prepared to return to their ships, other species began approaching them quietly. Representatives from worlds that had grown tired of council restrictions, young leaders who wondered what their people could accomplish if they were truly free to try. The galaxy was changing, and for the first time in 3,000 years, that change was not being controlled by the council. In the darkness beyond the galactic rim, 12 billion humans had built a civilization based on the simple idea that people should be free to become whatever they chose to be. Now that idea was spreading.